The new Shadow lineups are here in Pokemon Go, and in this video I will be going through all of the Shadow Pokemon that are currently obtainable from grunts and leaders, and I'll point out which are the best to go after. So the new lineups are in place from October 8th at 12 AM until the next Team GO Rocket Takeover, which will be in a few months. There's normally one each season. So starting with the grunts, for the fire type grunt that is identified by the line, "Do you know how hot Pokemon Fire Breath can get?" you will be able to encounter Shadow Torchic, Darumaka or Vulpix. None of these can be shiny. But of these, the standout encounters are Torchic and Darumaka. Shadow Torchic evolves into Shadow Blaziken, which is the 9th best fire type attacker, and it could also be purifying to have a low cost to power up Mega Blaziken if you have one with high IVs. And Mega Blaziken is the 2nd best fire type attacker and the 5th best fighting type attacker. And whilst not quite as good as Shadow Blaziken, Shadow Darumaka's evolution, Shadow Darmanitan, is the 14th best fire type attacker, so not a bad option either. For the normal type grunt that says the line, "Normal does not mean weak," you can encounter Shadow Stantler, which can be shiny, Shadow Meowth, which can be shiny, Shadow Bidoof, Rattata, Glameow, and Purugly. None of these really have any meta relevance, so it can be skipped unless you're shiny hunting. For the water type grunt, there is actually a male and female grunt, and each of them have their own lineup, but they are both identified by the line, "These waters are treacherous." The female grunt can get you Shadow Shelder, Barboach, or Mudkip. However, none of these can be shiny, but Shadow Barboach is a good target because Shadow Wishcash is ranked 47 in the Great League with 0, 14, 13 IVs. And Shadow Mudkip is also an option because Shadow Swampert is the 15th best water type attacker and the 16th best ground type attacker. And again, like I mentioned previously with Shadow Blaziken, if you have a high IV Shadow Swampert, it could be worth purifying for a high IV Mega Swampert that costs less to power up. And Mega Swampert is quite a bit more powerful than Shadow Swampert. However, if you are more of a Go Battle League player, then Shadow Swampert is a strong option because it is ranked 68 in the Great League with 0, 14, 14 IVs, it's ranked 47 in the Ultra League with 0, 14, 13 IVs, and it's ranked 80 in the Master League. And for the male grunt, you can get an encounter with Shadow Magikarp, and Shadow Gyarados is the 11th best water type attacker and ranked 24 in the Master League. For the electric type grunt that says the line, "Get ready to be shocked," we can encounter Shadow Joltik, Shadow Magnemite, which can be shiny, Shadow Blitzel, Voltorb, Electabuzz, and Alolan Geodude. Shadow Magnemite is the best encounter here because Shadow Magnezone is the best electric type raid attacker, and it is the 6th best steel type attacker as well. And Shadow Electabuzz is a decent option because Shadow Electivire is the 6th best electric type raid attacker. Moving on to the grass grunt, which says the line, "Don't tangle with us," you can get an encounter with Shadow Trico, Snover, or Hoppip. Shadow Trico's evolution, Shadow Sceptile, is the 10th best grass type attacker, and it is number 1 in its mega form. Shadow Snover's evolution, Shadow Abomasnow, is ranked 64 in the Great League with 0, 15, 15 IVs, and ranked 82 in the Ultra League with 3, 15, 14 IVs. And for Shadow Hoppip, Shadow Jumpluff is one of the best in the Great League at the moment, where it is ranked 14 with 0, 14, 14 IVs. And when it comes to the ice type grunt that reads, "You're going to be frozen in your tracks," you can encounter Shadow Snorunt, Alolan Sandshrew, and Sneasel, which can be shiny. Shadow Snorunt doesn't have much meta relevance itself, but it is the 4th best ice type attacker as Mega Glalie. And for Shadow Alolan Sandshrew, Shadow Alolan Sandslash is ranked 45 in the Great League with 0, 14, 14 IVs, and it's ranked 62 in the Ultra League with 0, 14, 15 IVs. So not a bad option there. And the best encounter from the ice type grunt is Shadow Sneasel, because Shadow Weavile is the best ice type attacker in the game, and it's the 4th best dark type attacker, so definitely one worth hunting. For the fighting type grunt that says the line, "This buff physique isn't just for show," you can get an encounter with Shadow Machop, which can be shiny, Shadow Mankey, Timburr, Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and Gurdurr. And there are actually quite a few worthwhile encounters here. Shadow Machop is a great encounter because Shadow Machamp is a strong raid attacker and Go Battle League Pokemon. Shadow Machamp is the 9th best fighting type raid attacker, and in Go Battle League it's ranked 19 in the Great League with 0, 14, 11 IVs, and it is ranked 23 in the Ultra League with 0, 15, 14 IVs. And a new addition to the Shadow Pokemon this month is Shadow Mankey, and its evolution Shadow Annihilate is the 14th best fighting type raid attacker. And for Go Battle League, it's actually Shadow Primeape that will have a better performance, and it is ranked quite a bit higher. Shadow Primeape is ranked 43 in the Great League with 1, 15, 15 IVs, and it's ranked 97 in the Ultra League with 7, 15, 15 IVs. And also Mankey is getting a community day in November, and both Primeape and Annihilate will be getting access to Rage Fist, which will improve their performance in Go Battle League. And Shadow Timburr and Shadow Gurdurr will also be worth getting because Shadow Conkeldurr is the 5th best fighting type raid attacker. Moving on to the poison type grunt, which is identified identified by the line coiled and ready to strike, you can get an encounter with Shadow Coughing, which can be shiny and hasn't been available since Jesse and James were in the game. You can also encounter Shadow Hisuian Sneasel, Croagunk, Nidorina, and Nidorino. Shadow Coughing is worth going after and holding on to until you can evolve it into Galarian Weezing at some point in the future, because Shadow Galarian Weezing is ranked 49 in the Great League with 0, 14, 14 IVs, and it's ranked as one of the best in the Ultra League at ranked 7 with 8, 15, 15 IVs. And Shadow Hisuian Sneasel is another encounter for the Ultra League where Shadow Sneasler is ranked 56 with 2, 15, 15 IVs. Next we have the ground type grunt, which does offer some really strong encounters. This grunt can be identified by the line you'll be defeated into the ground, and it can get you an encounter with Shadow Rhyhorn, Wooper, Drillbur, Vibrava, or Graveler. Shadow Rhyhorn is definitely one to go after because Shadow Rhyperior is the third best rock type attacker, and it is ranked 19 in the Master League and 7 as a non-shadow. Whether it is or not a shadow, it's a great accessible Pokemon for the Master League. Shadow Wooper is also a good Pokemon for Go Battle League because Shadow Quagsire is ranked 9 in the Great League with 0, 15, 14 IVs. And last for the notable ground encounters, we have Shadow Drillbur, and Shadow Excadrill is the 7th best ground type attacker and the 2nd best steel type attacker, so overall this Pokemon is very much worth building. For the flying type grunt that is identified by the line battle against my flying type Pokemon, you can get an encounter with Shadow Pidgey, Starly, Zubat, which can be shiny, Gligar, which can also be shiny, and Staravia. Unfortunately, Shadow Pidgey and Gligar are no longer the high priority Pokemon they used to be because they were nerfed this season. However, Shadow Gligar still sees some play in the Great League where it is ranked 102 with 0, 15, 12 IVs. And for Shadow Starly and Staravia, Shadow Staraptor is a decent flying type attacker at rank 17. And Shadow Zubat's evolution, Shadow Crobat, is actually the 7th best poison type attacker. For the psychic type grunt that says the line, are you scared of psychics that use unseen power, you can get an encounter with Shadow Solosis and Gothita, neither of which can be shiny or have any meta relevance, so they can be skipped. And when it comes to the bug type grunt that says the line, go my super bug Pokemon, you can encounter Shadow Scyther, which can be shiny, Shadow Anorith that can also be shiny, and some new shadow Pokemon, Shadow Caterpie, Venipede, Shelmet, and Carablast. Of the new bug shadow Pokemon, Shadow Venipede's evolution, Shadow Scolipede, is the 13th best bug type attacker, Shadow Shelmet's evolution, Shadow Acelgor, is the 10th best bug type attacker, and the best out of the 3 will be Shadow Carablast's evolution, Shadow Escavalier, which is the 6th best bug type attacker. For the rock type grunt that says let's rock and roll, you can encounter Shadow Tortuga, Archen, Roggenrola, Graveler, Shieldon, and Cranidos. Shadow Roggenrola's evolution, Shadow Gigalith, is the 4th best rock type attacker, so it is a good option. But even stronger is Shadow Cranidos' evolution, Shadow Rampardos, which is the best rock type attacker in the game. And lastly from the rock grunt, Shadow Shieldon's evolution, Shadow Bastiodon, is ranked 46 in the Great League with 0, 15, 14 IVs. Moving on to the ghost type grunt that is identified by this line, you can get an encounter with Shadow Drifloon, Golett, Duskull, Dusclops, or Sableye, which can be shiny. Shadow Duskull and Dusclops are decent encounters due to Shadow Dusknoir being ranked 81 in the Great League with 0, 14, 13 IVs, and it's ranked one of the highest in the Ultra League at 8 with 0, 15, 15 IVs. And also Shadow Sableye does see some play in the Great League where it is ranked 63 with 0, 15, 15 IVs. Next we have the Dragon type grunt, which is identified by the line roar how'd that sound, and this grunt can get you an encounter with Shadow Dratini, which can be shiny, Shadow Bagon, which can be shiny, and Shadow Gibble. All of these have meta relevance. For Shadow Dratini, Shadow Dragonair is ranked 78 in the Great League with 1, 15, 15 IVs. Shadow Dragonite is ranked 53 in the Ultra League with 0, 13, 15 IVs, and it's ranked 20 in the Master League. Shadow Dragonite is also the 6th best Dragon type attacker. When it comes to Shadow Bagon, Shadow Salamence is the 5th best Dragon type attacker, and for Shadow Gibble, Shadow Garchomp is the 8th best Dragon type attacker and the 6th best Ground type attacker, and it is also ranked 76 in the Master League. Next we have the Dark type grunt that says the line, wherever there is light there is also shadow, and this grunt can get you an encounter with Shadow Cacnea, Alolan Rattata, and Stunky. Shadow Stunky is worth picking up for the Ultra League where Shadow Skuntank is ranked 38 with 3, 15, 14 IVs, and Shadow Cacnea's evolution, Shadow Cacturn, is the 8th best grass type attacker. Moving on to the Steel type grunt, the grunt that says the line, you're no match for my Iron Will, and from this grunt you can encounter Shadow Alolan Sandshrew, Ferroseed, Alolan Diglett, Skarmory, Lairon, and Matang, none of which can be shiny. Shadow Alolan Sandshrew is a decent encounter like I mentioned before because of Shadow Alolan Sandslash's relevance in Go Battle League, and Shadow Matang is a great encounter because Shadow Metagross is the 3rd best Steel type attacker and the 12th best Psychic type attacker. It could also be worth purifying for Go Battle League where Metagross is ranked 55. And when it comes to the Fairy type grunt that says the line, check out my cute Pokemon Pokemon, you can get an encounter with Shadow Alolan Vulpix, Mawile, which can be shiny, and Shadow Snubbull, Curlier, and Granbull. Shadow Alolan Vulpix could be worth going after for a Shadow Alolan Ninetales for the Ultra League, where it is ranked 67 with 715 15 IVs. Shadow Snubbull and Granbull could also be a good option because Shadow Granbull is the 10th best Fairy type attacker, but even better is Shadow Curlier. Shadow Gardevoir is the 8th best Fairy type attacker, and Shadow Gallade is ranked 21 in the Great League with 0 15 15 IVs, and it's ranked 79 in the Ultra League with 0 12 15 IVs. We do also have the grunt that goes by the line winning is for winners, and again there is a male and female version of this grunt, and they do offer different shadow Pokemon. The female grunt can get you an encounter with Shadow Snorlax, and the male grunt can get you an encounter with Shadow Chikorita, Cyndaquil, or Totodile, none of which can be shiny. And out of these, the standout encounter is Shadow Totodile. Its evolution, Shadow Feraligatr, is the 10th best water type attacker, and in Go Battle League it's even more relevant. It's ranked 6th in the Great League with 0 11 13 IVs, it's the highest ranked Pokemon in the Ultra League with 1 15 14 IVs, and it's ranked 52 in the Master League, so well worth going after this Pokemon. And when hunting for Giovanni at Pokestops using a Super Rocket Radar, you may encounter the Decoy grunt, and this grunt offers Shadow Bellsprout, which can be shiny. So holding on to your Super Rocket Radar and hunting down Giovanni is a good way to shiny hunt this Pokemon. And for the Rocket leaders, from Arlo you can get an encounter with Shadow Beldum, which can be shiny, and it is a great one to hunt like I mentioned previously because of Shadow Metagross's meta relevance. Sierra will have Shadow Ralts, which can be shiny, and again it's worth going after because of Shadow Gardevoir's meta relevance I mentioned previously. Cliff will have Shadow Galarian Zigzagoon, which can be shiny but it doesn't really have any meta relevance. And lastly, for Giovanni you can get an encounter with Shadow Heatran, which can't be shiny unfortunately, but it is the 4th best fire type raid attacker and the 7th best steel type attacker. It's also ranked 22 in the Master League, so generally a really good Pokemon to pick up that is worth the Super Rocket Radar. And with that said, if you did enjoy this video, then I recommend checking out these videos on the screen now, and I'll catch you in the next one.